This lesson is on solving two-step and multi-step equations and inequalities. Sounds like a lot. Okay, first this is an equation because we have an equal sign. We're going to have one solution. When we see a set of parentheses and inside we have two terms and outside of it we see something being multiplied by it, we know that we're going to do the distributive property. So in this equation we have to do the distributive property first, which means we multiply 3 times the first term in the parentheses and then 3 times the second term in the parentheses. So 3 times d is 3d. 3 times 2 is 6, so we have 3d plus 6 equals 12. Now we have a two-step equation. We locate the variable. We want to move everything on the same side of the equation with the variable to the other side. And this is a review from our previous lessons. So we're going to move what's not attached to the variable first, what's being added or subtracted. We have a plus 6, so we're going to do a negative 6 on both sides of the equation. We have 3d left on the left side. 12 minus 6 is 6. Now the variable is being multiplied by 3, so we do the opposite of that, which is dividing both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we have d left on the left side, and 2. d is equal to 2. There's only one answer, so when we graph that, we put a single dot on 2 to indicate that there is one solution, and it is on 2. Now we're going to do the same thing with inequalities. Notice this time instead of an equal sign, we have a greater than sign, which means instead of one answer, we're going to have a range of answers. But we solve it the same way. You will see on the left side that we have a number multiplied times two terms in parentheses. This is the distributive property. Here's where we're going to do negative 4 times x, and then negative 4 times a negative 3. Negative 4 times x is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 3 is a positive. 2 negatives make a positive 12. Greater than 6. Find the variable. We want to get it by itself. We moved what is not attached to it first, so we have the plus 12. So we're going to do a negative 12 on both sides of the equation. On the right side now we have one positive and we have one negative. Different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value. So that would be negative 6. So we're left with negative 4x on the left side and negative 6 on the right side. Now x is being multiplied by negative 4. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we divide both sides by negative 4. Remember the rule that we learned in our last video. What are we dividing by? We are dividing by a negative number. Remember, when dividing or multiplying by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. So negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. So we have x left. We have to flip the sign. And x is less than 1.5, or 1 5/10. So we don't want to forget this rule. When multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. Since the variable is on the left side, the inequality sign points the arrow of the direction of the arrow. So I put a circle dot on 1.5, and it's going less than or to the left. Less is left. So it solves just like a two-step equation, but the answer you interpret differently. It's not one solution, it's several solutions. Here we're going to refer back to our lesson on solving an equation with variables on both sides. We look up here, and on both sides of the equation we see the distributive property. So on the left side we're going to have to do 4 times x and 4 times 5. And on the right side of the equation we have to do 3 times 2x and 3 times 4. When we do that, 4 times x is 4x, 4 times 5 is 20, so that's 4x plus 20. 3 times 2x is 6x, and 3 times 4 is 12. Here's where we have a variable on both sides of the equation. Remember, we have to move one of them to the other side. I like to keep my variable positive. That eliminates having to divide by a negative 1 at the very end. So when I look up here, I want to keep my 6x because it's going to be positive. If I move the 4x to the other side, then I'll be subtracting 4x on both sides, and I'll be left with a positive 2x. I like to keep my variable positive. That just eliminates that step at the end. So I'm going to subtract 4x on both sides. So on the left side we have left is 20, and on the right side we have 2x plus 12. Now we have a two-step equation. We want to get the variable by itself. We locate the variable. We move what is not attached to the variable first. That is a positive 12. So we're going to do a negative 12 on both sides of the equation. 12 minus 12 cancels out. It becomes 0. On the left side we have 8, and on the right side we have our 2x. X is being multiplied by 2, so we want to divide both sides by 2. And that would make x is equal to 4. Equal to 4. One solution. So when we graph it, we put a dot on 4 on the number line to show that there is only one possible solution. It's going to work the same way with inequalities. Look up here on the left side. You will see that again we have the distributive property. We have 4 times b, and 4 times negative 3. 4 times b is 4b. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Now we have our two-step inequality. We locate our variable. We moved what is not attached to it first. That's a negative 12. We do the opposite of a negative 12. So we're going to do a positive 12 on both sides of the equation. Negative 12 and positive 12 cancel out. You're left with a 4b on the left side, and on the right side, 72 plus 12 is 84. One step to go because b is not by itself yet. b is being multiplied by 4, so we want to divide both sides by 4. And 4 divided by 4 is 1, so that leaves us our 1b. The 1 can be invisible, so we have b left on the left side. And 84 divided by 4 is 21. b is less than or equal to. Since it's equal to, we're going to do a filled in or colored in dot, and it's everything to the left because it's less than. Here we have the distributive property on the right side of the equation. So that's what we want to do first. We're going to do 4 times a and 4 times negative 3. 4 times a is 4a. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Now we have a variable on both sides. I want to try to keep my variable positive. So if I move the 5 to the other side, that would be a negative 5a, and that would give me a negative 1a. And I don't like my variable to be negative. You can do it at the end. You'll just have to divide by negative 1 and flip your sign, but that takes an extra step. So I try to keep my variable positive, so I'm going to subtract 4a on both sides. That way, I'll have a positive a on the left side, and I copy everything else down. So this canceled out. So on the left side, we have left 1a, and the 1 is invisible. Minus 8 is greater than or equal to negative 12. We have 2 steps. We locate the variable. Remove what is not attached to the variable first. Since it's a negative 8, we're going to do a positive 8 on both sides of the equation. That way the negative 8 and the positive 8 become 0 and they go away. Negative 12 and a positive 8, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value, and that would be a is greater than or equal to negative 4. When graphing it, we have the variable on the left. That means that this shows us the direction of our arrow. It's greater than. Filled in dot because it does include negative 4 and all numbers above it, so we draw our arrow. On the left side, you see the distributive property again. 2 times g and 2 times negative 7 would be 2g minus 14. We want to get the variable by itself. Here's the variable. We want to move what's not attached to it first. It's a negative 14, so we do a positive 14 on both sides of the equation. Negative 14 and positive 14 becomes 0, so we're left with 2g equals 30. G is being multiplied by 2. The opposite of multiplying is dividing, so we're going to divide both sides by 2, and g is equal to 15. Only one solution. It is an equal sign. only 15 is the solution. Okay, we have two-step inequality. Locate the variable, move what's not attached to it first. This is a positive 9, so we're going to do a negative 9 on both sides of the equation. When you do that, you're left with 3x on the left side is less than 9, because positive 9 and negative 9 cancel out. X is being multiplied by 3. The opposite of multiplying is dividing, so we divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we're left with 1x, and then 9 divided by 3 is 3. So x is less than 3, not equal to 3. So this is where we use our circle dot, not filled in, to indicate that 3 is not a solution, but it's all numbers to the left. Less is left. And since the variable is on the left side of the equation, our inequality sign shows us the direction that the arrow goes. I hope that helps you with solving two-step and multi-step inequalities.